Good morning, my Facebook and YouTube friends. As promised when I posted yesterday that I was going to have 2 interviews today, this is my first one this morning. Her name is Susie Miller. Thank you for joining. She is going to share her testimony. And now let's start with your community that you're from. What community did you grow up in?
I was born in Chautauqua, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we moved to Clear Lake and then Augusta. So Augusta was the last place that I lived at, but Chautauqua is where...
Now, was that like an old order community, or was that more like a Schwarzentroober, or what would you call that?
We considered ourselves old order, but like since I was out here in Ohio now, we've figured out that it wasn't old order. So I'm not sure, like we called ourselves old order, but like we were close to the Schwarzentroopers.
Close to the Schwarzentroopers,
Yeah.
so it was very similar then too.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Like we would like take drivers to go to town or things like that. Like Schwarzentroopers do not do, but yeah, we were not far from that. Like
Yeah. So now this testimony that you're about to share is about how you were abused inside your Amish home. How many was in your family? How many brothers and sisters do you have?
there was 18 of us, 9 boys and 9 girls.
Wow.
18.
18?
Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, as far as, before we dive in to the actual testimony, how many abusers would you say you would have, roughly just an estimate? How many abusers would you say that you had as far as being sexually abused in the Amish home?
Probably, let's see, probably around 8 or 9.
8 or 9. Yeah, well, that kind of stands out from some of the victims that I've had on. Sometimes it's 1 or 2. That does stand out to me. And were these 8 or 9 abusers? Were they mainly family members?
Most of them were.
Most of them.
Yeah, but I had most of them were brothers. But then I had an uncle and I had a cousin, brother-in-law, and then I also had a neighbor guy. So yeah, but most of them were brothers.
Wow. So mostly your own brothers that would molest you. And now, what was the earliest age you would say that you had, the earliest memories you would have where this began?
As far back, like that's my first memory I ever had. Like I cannot remember anything else. Yeah, that's my very first memory. So I would say probably, I don't know, 3, 4 years old probably when it started.
Wow.
I'm guessing. I don't know.
3 or 4 years old. So since that's the earliest memories, is there any like good memories that you can even think of, or is it just all of that?
That's my main memory. There is one other. Well, there's a few other memories, but one memory that I have is that I would say is probably my next memory would be standing in the kitchen window watching for the other kids to come home from school, waiting for them.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say that's probably my main memory that I had. We had fun, we had good times,
Yeah.
but not like we should have had.
Right.
Or I guess I should say, for me, that's the way it felt,
Yeah.
I'm sure my other siblings, some of them felt different about things. But yeah, for me, that's the way I felt about it.
Sexual abuse kind of overshadows a lot of other things, though, because that's something that can haunt you for the rest of your life. And I would say probably 100% of victims that have been through something like that, especially at a young age, still would have PTSD to this day. I mean, I've even noticed, since I've been doing this and actually more educated myself, I've even noticed my own wife has, PTSD from some of the things she had went through. And it's just something that can literally haunt you the rest of your life. So now, when this earliest memory that you have, let's kind of go into, was you able to understand what was happening? Was you confused about why you were being treated that way by your brothers?
Yeah, like, I had no idea what was going on. it was a daily thing.
Daily.
It was a daily thing. And I know when I was little, I was like confused. I was like, okay, something didn't feel right. But yet at the same time, I didn't know what was going on. Like, I didn't know what was right or wrong. So yeah, but then when I got a little bit older, to where I kind of got the understanding of it, if I told my mom, then I went to my mom about it, and I told her about it. Well, then she gave me a spanking for it, because in her mind, I still don't get it, but in her mind, she was thinking, if she spanks me, I'm not going to allow the abusers to keep abusing me.
Okay.
And I still don't, totally understand that concept.
You're still trying to make sense of why would you get spanked when you're trying to get her to help you, right?
I am, yes.
Okay.
Still trying to figure out why she thought that, For me being a little girl and them being big boys, like, why would she think that I'm going to be fighting them off? Like, what am I supposed to do to fight them off?
Yeah. They're stronger than you are.
They're a lot stronger than I am. I was just a little girl.
When you started at 3, 4, or 5 years old, how old would you say your oldest brother was at that time? To your abuser brothers, I mean, just to kind of get an idea of how strong they might have been to overpower a little girl.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see what their age might have been. Were they already in the teenage years? Or?
Oh, more than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they would have been more like, just for kind of an idea, I guess, is like when I was 11, I got abused by a brother that was already married and had kids.
Really?
Yeah. So that kind of gives you the time frame there. So it was like they were big boys. They were grown. They were, completely.
When Mom and Dad found out or got any hint that something was going on, did it slow down at all?
I could always tell when Dad found it out, because then it slowed down and it seemed to not happen for a while.
Okay.
Especially not with the one, the one that was doing it at the moment. When Dad found out, it would quit for quite a while from him. But it never made a change when Mom found out. Because, I think some of that came too because we were taught, Mom and Dad, Dad talks to the boys, Mom talks to the girls.
Yeah.
You don't cross that. Dad don't talk to the girls, Mom don't talk to the boys. So I think that made some of the difference, because I think Mom didn't always go tell Dad, which I don't understand either. Why wouldn't you go tell Dad what's going on and, so that something can be done?
Mm-hmm. Was you at all in fear? I've talked to a lot of victims that actually had a fear of what might happen if they did say something. Was you at all ever in that kind of mindset where I'd rather just try to hide it and deal with it rather than say anything because of fear?
Yes, many times. Many times. Well, first of all, I didn't want to get spanked. And so, so I just didn't say anything, because I didn't want to get spanked again. And so I just decided, well, I guess I'll just have to deal with it. That's just going to be my life.
That's surprising when you hear that. You go to a parent, you expect as a child to be protected and loved.
Right.
But you get a spanking.
Right.
For trying to get help and, hey, I need to be protected because you're a child and you're trying to make sense of it. Now, another question that I always like to go into when you're still in the Amish and every community seems to be different, obviously. Now, I've really recognized the difference in so many different ones, and it all depends on what community, what church, and how. It depends on what community and what the rules and their ordinance, however strict they were, how they would deal with a situation like that.
Right.
Would you say that your community, once the church learned about it, did they do any kind of the normal ban, the shunning, excommunicating kind of thing?
Yeah, they would. But, they would not, they would shun them, but they would not be removed from the home or anything. they would just not be allowed to eat with the family. They'd have to sit somewhere else to eat or things like that. Like, they were not allowed to work with the family and stuff like that. They kind of had to be off by themselves, but they were still in the house. They were still on the place. They were still, like us younger ones, we never knew anything was going on because he'd maybe just say, oh, I'm not hungry right now, and just keep going. And then later he'd come and eat something or whatever, And so us younger ones really didn't recognize what was going on. As long as we weren't with the church, we didn't recognize what was going on.
Yeah. One thing I want all of my listeners, Facebook and YouTube, to understand is not every community is the same. There's a lot of good Amish. I want you to understand the community where I come from and what she's describing from her community out of Wisconsin and many others that have the same ordnung of dealing with shunning when they hear of any kind of abuse or anything that is wrong where you get punishment. I want you to understand what that looks like and what that means. That means when you get 6 weeks of shunning inside this Amish community, you will be put in the band like she described. You can't eat with the family. You're kind of, they make you feel shameful. Not only is it once you're forgiven back in with the victim in the same home, it's also literally during the shunning period, you're still in the same home and your brothers were probably in the same home. They could have literally recommitted this same crime while being shunned. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's why I want people to understand it, is that while they're not all the same, I know a lot of people get very angry when they say my community ain't that way, but there's many communities, this is how they operate. And I want you to understand that, because when they shun someone, it's 6 to 8 weeks, at the most 8 weeks. My dad did sometimes 8 weeks on the alcoholism and stuff like that.
Okay.
Now, once that person is deemed forgiven and voted on in the church and is accepted back into the church, then a victim like Susie here cannot bring that back up. You're supposed to forget and forgive and move on. And if you brought that back up, you get some harsh punishment, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. The victim sometimes gets harsher punishment for not forgiving than the actual abuser while they were getting shunned.
Yeah.
I want to explain that. Now, Susie, I talked to you a little bit before this video. You got pregnant at one point.
Yep. I was trying to think. I think I was around 20 when I got pregnant, which I didn't know at the moment, because at that point I didn't even know like what it takes. Like I didn't know how babies come. Like I remember one of our youth got married, like a couple got married in our youth. And within, I don't know, was it it was very shortly after they were married. Like, it was, I don't know, 9 months at the max. I would almost say sooner than that, that they had a baby. And I remember saying to, I think it was to my brother, wow, they're lucky they got married, because here they had a baby. And I didn't connect it,
Right.
So even at 20 years old, even at 21 years old, I had no idea what happens and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did get pregnant one time.
So even though you were being sexually abused growing up, you still didn't understand. There was no education on where babies even come from, right?
Nope. Had no clue.
Yeah. Did you understand it when you got pregnant at that age? You still didn't understand.
I didn't know I was pregnant until after I left the Amish, actually. Yeah, I became pregnant, and then I had a miscarriage, which to this day I'm so thankful. Because honestly, I'm not sure where I would be, because I know I would have ran away. And I would not have ran away in a good way. So yeah, I ended up with a miscarriage and almost ended up in the hospital because of my miscarriage. But I had no clue.
When you had the miscarriage, did you understand it was a miscarriage? You didn't even understand that. Did your mom say anything to why it might be? Okay.
No.
She probably didn't want you to understand.
No.
Right.
Like, she asked me if I had my period the month before that, and I said, no, I didn't. She's like, well, why didn't you tell me? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't even think about it. She was mad at me that I didn't tell her. But she never explained nothing.
Yeah. Now, there's been some victims that told me that they were told to take something right after they missed their period, early stages, to try to get rid of it, basically abortion. Was you given any specialty or anything like that? No? Okay.
They were giving me red pepper in capsules and stuff because of my heavy bleeding. That they were giving me that and stuff, trying to take care of the miscarriage. But other than that, they didn't. No, they just gave me stuff trying to stop it, like not stop the miscarriage, but slow the bleeding, control the bleeding and everything. So yeah.
What did you think when you were bleeding like that? I thought you was going to die or something,
yeah.
right?
Like I was horrified. I just had no clue. I was just like, and I asked Mom several times. I said, Mom, what is going on? Like, why can't we do something about this? And she just said, well, sometimes it just goes that way,
Yeah.
And she just wouldn't give satisfaction of what would be going on.
I want to kind of understand, Susie, because you had your brothers, okay? What made? Can you shine any light on what resulted in an uncle? Roughly how old was you, and what made him approach you in that way?
In my mind, that's just who he was. He had a very dirty mind. That's just who he was. I know some of my other sisters don't feel that way. He was almost like a hero to them. But for me, I don't know why. Like I guess he just thought he could, and I wouldn't say anything, which I didn't, because like why go say something again, So I didn't say anything.
Well, did he use any gifts? Lots of times I hear of these things that abusers would give, gifts, good things, quarters, money, whatever, to try to keep you quiet.
No, he did not. We were at a wedding, at my cousin's wedding, and so he was there. And it was like one big house, and then a big house and where the grandparents live, like a
Dowdy house.
Dowdy house, yeah. And so there was like a hallway in between, and I was walking through there after dark, and he came through there, and he just grabbed me and just
had his way,
and then that was all was to it. And after that, I just avoided him.
Yeah.
I just refused to go close to him, which is sad. Like, your family, your uncles, your whoever, like, my grandpa. My grandpa was one that did it as well. So
your grandpa did?
My grandpa did, yes. So, lots of, all those people, like, you should be protected by. Those are the people that should stand up for you, and if somebody does something, they should, go after the person that did it. But, they were the ones that were doing it, so.
Yeah, I'm a Christian, but I can tell you right now, if I had a daughter that happened to, I'd probably kill him.
Right.
I mean,
right.
That's just plain and simple. I wouldn't put up with the nonsense. But,
right.
Yeah, I mean, the very people that you thought would protect you are just having their way with your body. Like you're just a piece of meat.
Yeah.
But the grandpa, so you even had a grandpa. I mean, what was you at his house?
He lived with us.
Oh, in the scene. Oh, yeah, well, that explains.
His wife had passed away, and then he moved in with us. And so, yeah, he was around us. And, I looked to him like he was, on a pedestal. He's grandpa. Like, this is an amazing guy here. Like, he was the next to my dad, My dad was my hero. He was my, but yet I was not allowed to go talk to him about what was going on, So, but besides that point there, like, he was my rock. And then my grandpa was the next to my dad. Well, then he started doing it too. And so I was just like, I was just like out there, like, here I am.
Yeah, well, it's on the rise. It's been when God led me down this path of exposing light onto that darkness, I had no idea How many of you's out here? I mean, there's a lot of you that has literally left the Amish community because, well, there was no other way out from the abuse.
Yeah.
Because of the system that they have, it allows them to shove it under the rug. And then you're there dealing with it. And what yours really stands out for the fact that you had all those brothers doing it to you, and then an uncle, and then a grandpa, and then did you say a neighbor? An
guy.
Amish neighbor guy?
Yep. Brother-in-law.
Brother-in-law. What led up to that? I mean,
he just basically did what he wanted. I mean, like,
was it outside?
anywhere. It was anywhere. He would if I know one time we were in the living room and he was sitting on a rocking chair, rocking one of his kids, and I had to get between him and the quilt. There was a quilt that was put in frame that Mom was quilting. I had to get between him and the quilt frame to either close the curtain or open it or something. Mm-hmm. And so he just reached over and did what he wanted, and right there in the house with other people around, like a lot of times if I would go, I know sometimes Mom would tell me to go down to the basement and get something, get canned food, whatever. And when I came down there, he was down there waiting on me, if I went into the bedroom to put one of my nieces or nephews into bed, he came into the bedroom. One time I went working for them, and so I slept in the living room because they didn't have a bedroom for me. So I slept in the living room, and every morning he got out. My sister was sick. I don't remember what was going on. But she couldn't, they lived on a farm, so they were milking cows and stuff, and she was not able to help. So they had me there to help. And I was probably, trying to think, by that time I was probably around 7th grade. Yeah, I would have been in 7th grade by that time. No, 8th grade. I was in 8th grade by that time. And every morning he would come out and he would do whatever he wants to do. She would stay in bed and he'd come out and mess with me, and then he'd go out, start chores. And then I had to go out and help him, and then he would try it out there.
Out in the barn?
Out in the barn.
What happened there? I don't know what's going on there. Froze up a little bit. So even out in the barn, you got to go out and you got to help with the chores?
I had to go out and help with the chores. It was just him and me out there choring. Once in a while, she would come out and just sit with us, just to be with us. But yeah, most times him and I were by ourselves out there, and he would try it out there.
So what, did your mom ever, since it happened that often, that much, did your mom ever red-handed catch any? No? Really?
And a lot of times, we had to, go out and help with the chores. So, we had to go out in the silo and pitch down silage and stuff. Well, it was either me and one of the boys, or something like that, and then they would do it then. If I had to go out and help with the hay, that's actually, one time I went out, when I was 11 years old, my mom told me to go help with the hay. So my brother was gonna, and that's the time when he was married and he had 2 kids. I don't know why anymore, but for some reason they were living with us at the time. And so he told me, and this is just an example of what happened and how it played in their mind. We had this big fork, where we would catch the hay and pull it up and take it into the hay mow. And so then he would have a team of horses outside where he would pull it, and then I would have to yell, stop when it would come to the right place. And so he told me where to tell me where to stop. Where I should say it. And I said, "Oh, you mean here?" And he said, "No, here." I said, "Oh, you mean here?" And boom. He had in his mind. That's all it's like every time you try to have fun, you were never allowed to have fun, because the moment you tried to have any type of fun, that's immediately what they thought. And So yeah, and that time is the time that my virginity got taken.
When it actual broke your virginity. Okay.
At 11 years old.
At 11 years old.
At 11 years old.
And you probably, since there was no education on stuff, you probably didn't understand why bleeding again. None of that. Okay.
I did not, except I did know that he hurt me. That I did know. And then but I didn't go to mom. I didn't talk to mom about it or nothing. Later, my mom called me in, and I knew the way she called me in, I knew that she knew what happened. And I went in to see what she wants, but I was scared. I was very, very scared. Like, I was all shaky. Like, I did not want to go see mom, but I knew I had to. And so I did. I went in, and then it was mom and my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law really apologized for what happened. And I remember that time they did say that they're going to take it to church. They told me that they will take it to the church and they will take care of it. And I do remember that he was, he had to come home from church and stuff like that while the others stayed at church and stuff. But yeah, I don't, it was not like, they tried to comfort me, but they couldn't comfort me. Like, I just felt so trashed.
Like you're worthless.
Yeah.
Being used.
Yeah, and it actually made me feel worse for them to talk to me about it. It was because it was not an open thing. It was not to where I was able to just come and just say, hey, this is what happened, I need help. Nothing like that. It was just, I normally always got the spanking for it. So now I was just so horrified what is going to happen next. So.
Did you get accused at all for why they would do it to you? You instigated it?
My mom told me many times, she said, I smile too much. And for me, I was always a smiler. Like, I just always was. I was just always, no matter what happened, I always smiled. I always, I was just always a happy girl.
And that's surprising with what you went through. I mean,
yeah.
You want to be happy and joyful and smile, but yet, if you smile, your brother might take advantage of you.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, that's a problem.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm going to continue shining light on because it's a broken system. It's a system the Amish, especially the old order, the ones that are set up like your community and my community and many others, they have they don't even have a beginning of trying to grasp this issue.
Yeah.
They don't even know how to deal with it. Now, what stands out again, as you said, as soon as your mom found out, she knew, she went to the church. Was there ever a thought of, well, this is rape, we better report this crime to the police? See? Yeah, no. That's the problem.
Never. In fact, one time an incident had happened and somebody made the comment about calling the police. And, I mean, we got told by the church very quickly, we better not call the police. This is not acceptable. We are not going to go down that route. And so, yeah, it was not an easy, honestly, just for me, if I think back of my childhood, that's basically all I can remember.
Is how you were just used as a piece of meat and, wow. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Now, I'm trying to more understand. You had this brother. He gets married. He's got his own family. But yet you are telling me he still would rape you.
And I could tell, like, the way he was he had a girl first, yeah. So he had a girl and a boy. The boy was just, like, a baby yet. But I could tell, like, when he was, like, sometimes he would be outside just laying on the grass, maybe some Sunday afternoon or whatever, and just playing with his kids. And every time I came around the corner, the way he responded, the way he acted, I could tell he was messing with her.
With his daughter?
Yeah. And, and if I'd say, what were you doing? He'd be like, oh, nothing, just playing.
Just playing.
Just playing. But I knew it because I was going through that. So I knew how they respond, and I knew what he was doing.
He's probably never been reported.
No.
He's still right there. He could be doing it right now.
Well, yeah. He actually had spent some time in jail. Okay. A little bit, not long, because he did report himself for his own daughter, but not that one.
Okay,
a different
not that
one. Yeah. So he had spent some time in jail, and I don't think he would do it again. He is back with his family. He's back with his little girl and everything. I don't think he would be doing it again for what he went through. Mm-hmm. I think he was pretty horrified when he went to jail.
Hopefully that was enough to make a man repent.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you repent, you're forgiven.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's disturbing to me how much it's happening, and it's something that the last resort is going to law enforcement.
Yeah.
They do want to protect the Amish name, the Amish church. They don't want the negative, attention focused on the Amish. So it's very important, I think, that they want to protect that. Now, one thing that always stands out to me. So the victim is really, you were not taken to get any help or how to counseling? Nothing?
No. Oh, no. If we wanted to go get counseling, we would have been told absolutely not. Like, this is unacceptable.
Because that exposes the family secret.
That exposes everything. And, so no, we would not have been allowed to go get counseling.
Letters get written around. Amish communicate very good through letter. They're the biggest gossipers, usually, is what our community was.
Yep.
So if you went and got counseling, that Amish counter, it would have spread so fast.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody would have known, the Susie Miller family.
Yep. Yep. When I was 21, this is the best results I ever got out of being abused. When I was 21 years old, I was sent to my brother's house. He was married. He had 2 kids, 2 girls. And he was, every time his wife left the house, he would use me. And he actually used me like his wife. Like, he literally did, and he did whatever he wanted. And the thing that, like, I was like literally just frozen. Like, I couldn't do nothing. I tried to fight him off. I pushed him away. I kind of kicked him, whatever. And the thing is, like, when I became pregnant, the time I became pregnant, the ministers told me, they said, if you would have just came forward and told us, then you would not have to be punished. Because this way it looked like I was hiding it. It looked like I was involved, like I wanted it, because I didn't come forward. But that time, my brother actually, which was actually amazing, but he took it completely on himself. He got me persuaded by saying how Dad was not living anymore by that time. But he told me how Dad told him how every boy and girl should do that so that they know what it's like, when they get older and stuff. Which he said later, it was a big lie. He said Dad never ever told him that. Like, Dad would have always told him, that's unacceptable. You don't do that. But he just said that to get me willing to give in and do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And so that time the church did tell me, they said if I would have came forward and told them, I would not have had to been punished, because it would not have looked like I was involved, like I wanted it. This way it looked like, I was keeping it secret, so I kind of wanted it myself, and so that's why I just didn't say anything. And, but then when I was 21, when my brother was doing it to me, he would not, like, at first, like, we lived in Wisconsin, and he lived in Missouri. So we were quite a ways away. And so he would, like, at first he didn't allow me to write letters to my mom. Finally said, okay, you can write letters, but you will not send it off without me reading them. So every letter I wrote, he knew about it because I had to have a stamp. and he's hid their stamps, so I had to always ask him for a stamp, and then he knew that I wrote the letter. And even if I sealed the envelope, he would rip that envelope open and read the letter, and then he would send it off.
Why do you think he did that?
I know he was scared that I was going to tell Mom.
Yep.
And at the moment, it didn't occur to me. Like, I just couldn't understand why he's acting like this, you know. And so, and sometimes I wanted to go to the phone to call my mom and just talk with her. And he's like, nope, you're not going to the phone. He would not allow me to go to the phone. I was there for 3 months, and all 3 months, it was insane. Like, I was helping them at a produce patch, and he would do it out in the produce patch, he would do it out in the woods, he would do it in the house, he would do it in the barn, he would do it everywhere that he could possibly do it. And he was doing it to his little girls too. His oldest was 3 years old, and his youngest was 1, I think. And he was messing with them too. And, you know, if I tried to tell him, you know, he needs to stop doing that, he'd just laugh at me like, oh, yeah, right, like as if you wouldn't like it. And he'd be like, you know that they will like it too, you know. And so, long story short, by the time that when Mom came to get me, she took me back home. I did not want to be at home. And so I ended up living with one of my other brothers that lived in a different different city in Wisconsin, different town. And then one of my sisters was there as well, and we got started talking and stuff, and she discovered something happened. So she told me to tell her, and she said, I will tell Mom, and I will let Mom know that this is unacceptable. You know, she cannot blame you for it. Like, and so that's how that came out. And then the church did deal with him. I did not have to get punished that time.
Okay.
But I had to confess it in front of the church, though.
You still had to confess.
I still had to confess that I was in the wrong, but I didn't have to be shunned that time. And then his church, I was actually really surprised, but his church actually did tell him, because he was saying it was all my fault. I am the one that wanted it. And his church actually did tell him. They said, his minister came to him and he said, I don't care if she stood naked in front of you. He said, you are married, you have kids, you're older than she is,
Yep.
It's on you.
Good.
And he told him that they're going to shun him until he owns up to it.
Good. Wow, we need more pastors like that too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's the best results I have ever gotten.
Yeah.
And then he did write me a letter later after I left the Amish. He wrote me a letter saying, I'm sorry for everything I've ever done to you.
Okay.
I don't think the letter was actually sincere because the way he responded to me. He couldn't face me after that. Like, he could not be in the same room as I was after that.
You shared with me about an auction or something, and he came in the same room, even though there's other people. He couldn't stay in that room.
Yes. Yep. My mom had an auction, and she had a nice big house, you know, and we were like, even if we came into the same house, in the same room, like with a whole bunch of people between us even, if he happened to see that I'm in that room, he turned around and walked out. He could not be there.
So he had some guilt, obviously,
Oh, yeah.
of what he'd done
yeah.
all them years, yeah. Well, I am glad that he wrote you a letter, at least acknowledging. What was
Yeah.
it? Maybe sound like he was apologetic? Regretted anything of it? No?
It was basically just, to me, it sounded like the church was after him about it and trying to get him to apologize for what he's done. And so he said, okay, fine, just to please them, fine, I'll just do it.
I'll just write a letter to please the church.
Yeah. It was not like, look, I'm really, really sorry. You know, I really did you wrong. Nothing like that. It was just, you know, that was just the way it was, you know, like, sorry for everything I've done to you, you know.
Yeah, I know some Amish communities do have Amish-owned facilities for victims to go to, but you never were taken to any kind of counseling or nothing, right?
Nope.
Wow. Yeah, that's no resources, you know. No, there's no resources for the victim, but yet what resource did you get? Punishment for not saying anything?
Right.
Yeah. See, the complete opposite. That's one thing I want people to understand is those systems that they have set up, instead of getting the actual right help for counseling for any victim, it's the complete opposite. You actually get shunned. As she was really little, she's getting spanked. And then as she gets older, now you're getting shunned in the church. You're getting punished by the church elders because, you didn't say nothing. What about loving on a victim and try to help them and counsel them? It's broken. It's broken. Now, did you have any other sisters that, you don't have to answer it either if you don't want. Did you have any other victims in the house? You had a large family, you said 18 kids.
Yeah.
Did any of your other sisters experience anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think me and the sister just older than me, I think we got the most.
Okay.
But I think all of the others got it one or the other time.
Yeah.
Like, I think they all experienced it sometime, one time or another. Not as much as we did. And I think that probably came because, we were younger. So once the oldest ones were old enough to kind of fight him off or to actually go say what actually had happened or whatever, then they kind of moved on to the younger ones.
Yeah. Gotcha. So you still communicate at all with any of your family in Wisconsin, or?
I do some. Like when I left the Amish, I didn't see any of my family for 2 years. And it's actually crazy how that all happened because, like, I was always so-called, like, the good girl. While I was still Amish. Like, I never gave the church problems. The only problems the church had with me is the sexual abuse that was going on. Other than that, I never gave the church any problems. So when I left, everybody was floored because here I'm the youngest almost. Like, I have one brother younger than me. And I'm the first to leave. And nobody would have expected it. Like, they would have more like thought maybe some of the others would have gone before me, But, but yeah, and so then it went for 2 years before I saw any of my family. But then when I came back, it kind of started slowly but surely, like finally I had some of my sisters come visit me and, things like that.
Yeah.
But now there is 4 of us sisters and 2 of the brothers that are not Amish anymore. No, 3 of the brothers that are not Amish anymore.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we, I talk with those, but other than that, I don't talk with anybody unless I come into the community. Then I would drive out to visit my mom.
Yeah.
I don't really try to visit any of my siblings because none of them really want me around. So I just kind of let them go. But if I get the chance, I go out and talk to mom, and stop in and see her. But
yeah,
that's very rare.
See Sandy Bordner's comment there says, "Do you even trust a man now?" It's probably kind of hard, ain't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, most times it's like if a guy comes around, like most times I am like trying to figure him out first.
Yeah.
Like it's really hard. And to be honest, when I started dating, I was forced into sex as well. When I was still Amish, I dated one guy, just one guy ever. That's the only guy I ever dated. That's the only guy I ever went on a date with. And after we were dating for a while, he wanted to have sex, and I refused him. So he got mad and broke up with me because I refused to have sex. But then after I left the Amish, when I started dating then, he forced me into sex as well. I told him multiple times no, and he would just do what he wants to do. And then I still had that Amish mindset. And we had talked to the minister about it, and our preacher, and he told us, this is unacceptable. We cannot do this. And then he ended up going. He did tell us. He said, "I'm not going to marry you guys if you're going to keep on."
Okay.
So he came back later, and instead of asking, he just said, how did he word it? Like something like, I'm expecting you guys are staying clean or staying pure. Mm-hmm. And my boyfriend at the time, he just responded, yeah. And I was just sitting there just feeling angry as can be.
Because you knew it was lying.
Because I knew it was lying.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, I didn't dare speak up because I was taught that you're supposed to be submissive under your husband. And I was like, well, if I can't be submissive under my boyfriend, I won't be able to be submissive under him once we're married. And so I kind of, I just shut up, and I should not have. Now looking back, I realize that. But yeah, so it hasn't really ever stopped. I mean, yeah, it has now, but it has been like.
But what she was asking there about trusting a man. I mean, that's kind of hard to trust a man when it's all you have dealt with all of your life.
It is
being forced.
It is, and just to be honest, like with I have a little girl now. And with her, like, I am always, and even with my son, because I know, like, even from my brothers, they abused each other. So even for my son and my daughter both, but especially towards my daughter, I've told her, and I've told my son as well, but I told both of them, I said, if anybody ever approaches you in that way, ever, I said, you come to me and you tell me, and I will take care of it. Because I said, there's no way I'm going to accept that. No way. Yeah. And so, yeah, I told him, I said, I will never accuse you for it. I will never blame you for it.
You're educating your children.
Yes.
Don't put up being touched here, touched there. It's called education.
Yes.
So if you teach them that, they're aware. You didn't have that awareness at all growing up, because in my community anyway, you couldn't even use that three-letter word, sex.
No.
You had no.
Oh, absolutely not. Like, in fact, we had gotten one of my brothers got a perfume, and it was kind of one that we all liked, and so we all used it sometimes, but it had the word, what did it have? I think it had sexy on it.
Okay.
My mom made us take a a black Sharpie marker, and mark that out, because we were not allowed to have that word on there. And, I mean, to me, I didn't even get it. Like, I'm like, okay, whatever, like, it's a bad word, I guess, But we kind of made fun of it, how we're not allowed to have that on there. We had to mark it off. And we would talk to the other youth about it, We'd show them, look, Mom said we have to mark this off. But, we wouldn't. I never got what it actually meant.
And I think the lack of sex education, the lack of awareness, the dangers of it, the diseases that come with all of those things, pregnancy, the lack of teaching that inside these communities results in a lot of this abuse.
Yes, absolutely.
I am positive of it.
Absolutely. And see, like we were always told, don't look. Like, even if we'd have, like, little babies, like newborns, and we'd have a 1-year-old, and we'd be changing the newborn's diaper, and the 1-year-old would be standing there watching, we'd make the 1-year-old walk away. You're not allowed to look. Well, that just made so much curiosity.
Yeah.
To where, and I think that's a lot of why all that abuse was happening. Everybody was curious.
Yeah.
My first cousin told me one time, when he was trying it, he said that he knows, he went on a date with a girl, and then he told me what had happened. He told this girl that he knows how little girls look when they're babies, and he just wants to see if if big girls still look that way. And she cut that date off right there and then.
End of dating,
End of date, right there.
So on the first date, he wants to see.
On the very first date, he wanted to see if she still is the same. Yep.
The curiosity that's there, and I can't even blame him.
Yeah.
You know why? Because there's no education.
There's no education. Like, everything is hush, hush, hush. Like, I know my sister said one time, one time she was away for quite a while and she came home and my mom was pregnant. And so she had a pretty big belly. And she looked at my mom, she's like, wow, you're fat. And my mom gave her a whack over her mouth and she said, you don't talk that way. You shut up now. This is not acceptable. My sister had no idea.
Right.
You know? But it was because it was a pregnancy involved. And so because of that, she got whacked over her mouth.
Yeah.
That was not acceptable.
Yeah. The education, not allowed to talk about it. Not allowed.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember being 15 and 16. My hormones were changing.
Absolutely.
I had questions.
Yeah.
I got zero answers.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
Now, all at once, a young man or a young woman might get something in their head to try something out.
Yeah.
And you have no education. You have nothing to stand on, and then you ask any questions, and you're blowed off. Like,
Absolutely.
I remember finding out when I was 16 that babies really don't, angels in the middle of the night don't just bring your brother or sister down in the middle of the night.
Right.
But I believed that because that's what I was told.
Right. And I didn't even know that until after, And the thing with, like, when I was 21, when my brother was doing that, like, he would always say, I don't think you're pregnant. I don't think you're pregnant. And I'd just be there like cold ice. Literally. Like, I was cold as ice. Like, I feel the iceness right now.
When he said,
I mean, it's like weird, but it's like, I feel cold like right now, like just thinking about it.
because those memories are going to...
Because of memories, yeah.
When he would say those words, I don't think you're pregnant. Did you even, at that age when he said that, did you even realize what that meant? Mm-mm. When he said the word pregnant, you had no idea that...
I had no clue. I didn't know what he meant. All I knew is I was trash there. I was just a piece of meat there, and he did what he wanted and walked away. So,
any of your abusers ever explain what is coming out when they do it? No? You didn't know what that was? Mm-mm. Wow. I even had, actually the same one that was doing that when I was 21. He actually one time, he made me, like, play with him, and then he made me watch him, like... Shoot it, yeah. So you saw... And I was just a little girl, yeah. I saw that, and I was just like, I don't know, maybe second, third grade when he did that. Wow. So you obviously so young, you didn't understand what the heck that is. Yeah. Yeah. I was like, okay, whatever, it was just, to me it was gross, but whatever, And to me, it just didn't make any sense to me, all of this stuff all along, nothing made sense to me with it. Yeah. No, so now, since you really, we grew up, I know in my community, I would have never thought about calling the cops at a young age for anything. No. Sometimes when people ask, when I do a testimony on a video, I've had a lot of people that were not from the non-Amish, they don't understand the Amish way of life. And they would say things like, well, why didn't you just run away and call the cops? That was the last thing on your mind, right? Last thing on my mind. Yeah. Completely. I honestly, after that had happened with my brother in Missouri, the ministers came to me when they found out, and I was like so scared. I was so scared when they came. But they were super nice. They were very, very nice. They said that they don't think I have to worry about anything. But then they later did come back and say that, the church wants me to at least confess it. The church is not satisfied without me at least making a confession, which was like, okay, whatever, But then they did tell me, they said, you should have kicked him in between his legs really hard. They said, I guarantee you that he would have never done it again. Or they said, another thing you should have done is you should have somehow made your way to the phone and called the police. And I'm like, you didn't even know to do that, right? Yeah, like, excuse me? Like, all of these years, all this has been happening. You never ever told me anything about calling the police. Never. Why not? Why wait until I get used like this and then tell me, oh, you could have called the police? But if thanks, I appreciate it. So at a young age, if they'd have educated you and said, hey, if you're ever touched by any man in this area, in this area, in this area, you tell your mom and dad, and you call the cops. Yes. Now you would have been educated to know what to do, right? Absolutely. Yeah. But no education until later on, now they said you could have done that,
Yeah.
but that was not on your mind
That
at
was
the time.
no, and I had no idea that I even could.
Right.
Like, you know.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because it's been really heavy on my heart to educate people of what is going on inside a lot of these Amish communities, with how it's able to operate, how it's able to be shoved under the rug. And we covered a lot in this video. I really appreciate you sharing all of that,
Absolutely.
because it's very important that we break, and you did. Thank you for wanting to talk about it, and you stopped it. It's called breaking the generational curse.
Yes.
That generational curse stopped with you.
Yeah.
So would you, or have you heard of anything where maybe, I know your brothers were doing it to you, was your dad maybe abused, or was there a generational curse you know of?
I don't know if my dad ever was or not. I know my mom was, and my grandpa that was doing it to me, he was my mom's dad.
Yeah.
But then even on my dad's side, like, my grandma came to me and she told me to never be alone with my grandpa.
So she knew.
So she knew. But at least she protected me. You know, like,
Yeah.
she came and she said, hey, I'm just giving you a heads up. Don't ever be alone with him, so that nothing happens, because he would if he would get the chance. But it was still like there was a curse on both sides.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's almost like my brothers had no chance, especially with no education.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it just keeps on, you know, if nobody breaks that off, it will just keep on going. Like, you know, and my brother-in-law that did it, his sons were doing it, you know, and not to me, but to like their sister, you know, and they will, you know, that stuff will all keep rolling if nobody steps in and makes a stop to it.
Somebody's got to stop it. It spirals out of control. I've now talked to victims where their brothers, their dad, grandpa, and even way back before that, it's just been spiraling out of control for it's a generational curse, and somebody's got to stop it.
It is.
I see Esther Mass asks, are lots of these abusers coming from the Schwarzentroober? It's all. It's from every. I've had testimonies from Schwarzentroopers, Old Order Amish, New Order, Mennonites. It's been everywhere. Dorothy Parker was one of the most gruesome Mennonite stories I've ever shared. But yeah, I would put them. They all got issues.
Yeah.
You know. And it's all comes down to the system that they have set up. They live in their, I want to say, secret society.
Yes.
I talked to a sheriff not long ago that said, you know, they're very secretive.
They are.
We don't know what's going on. They don't tell us anything. We just leave them be.
Yeah.
And so you can see it's just...
And that's the thing, you know, I honestly believe, even if I would have gone to the sheriff's, you know, like, even if I would have gone to the police, like, they would have been like, you know, oh, we've got it taken care of, you know, we'll punish them in church or whatever, you know. And, like, I'm guessing, like, some of them would be like, no, I never did anything like that, you know. I never did that, you know. And so I don't think we would have gotten much help anyways, because everything was so secretive.
Yeah.
You know, like, the only way we would have gotten help is if I would have told an English guy, and the English guy would have been able to report it and get us help.
Yeah. And that's also very important at a young age, that there's somebody that can understand their language.
Yeah.
Because if a young Amish child wants to communicate to an English man, you need an interpreter what they're saying.
Yeah.
Because at a young age, I didn't speak very good English. I struggled with it.
Right. Well, we weren't taught English until school.
Yeah, in school.
First grade.
So if you need help at a very young age, how you gonna?
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, thank you very much, Susie. I appreciate you hopping on here and sharing your
Absolutely.
testimony.